peoples and culture of Nigeria in the context of globalization. Introduction. This session is about globalization. Globalization could be described as an ongoing process by which regional economies, societies, and cultures have become integrated through a globe-spanning network of communication and trade. A quick example that will come to mind is the use of internet and mobile phones and other social networks. Did you remember hearing this word? The world is a global village. Here you will learn how the people and the culture of Nigeria are being influenced by the global village. What then is globalization? How can globalization be measured? What are the cultural effects of globalization? Which other effects does globalization produce? Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to define and use correctly all the keywords printed in bold. Describe how globalization can be measured. Explain 4 cultural effects of globalization. And identify 3 other effects of globalization. Meaning of globalization. The term globalization is sometimes used to mean economic globalization, the coming together of the economies of different countries into the international economy through trade, foreign direct investment, capital flows, migration, and the spread of technology. However, the factors that make globalization possible are the combination of economic, technological, social-cultural, political, and biological factors. The term can also mean the international circulation of ideas, languages, or popular culture through acculturation. Therefore, globalization is a process through which all human population is bonded in a single society. Economic globalization. Looking specifically at economic globalization, this demonstrates that it can be measured in different ways. This centers around the 4 main economic factors that characterize globalization. 1. Goods and services, such as exports plus imports in relation to national income. 2. Labor or people, e.g., net migration rates, inwards or outward migration flows weighted by population. 3. Capital, for example, inward or outward direct investment in relation to national income or per head of population. And lastly, technology, such as international research and development flows, proportion of populations, and rate of change thereof, using particular inventions like technological advances such as the telephone, motor car, and broadband. As globalization is not only an economic process, a Swiss think tank, COF, recently used different approaches to measure globalization. They used 3 main dimensions of globalization: economic, social, and political. In addition to the approaches in measuring these dimensions, an overall approach to measure globalization and other dimensions means actual economic flows, economic restrictions, and data on personal contacts, data on information flows, and data on cultural closeness is calculated. Cultural effects of globalization. Globalization has had an impact on different cultures around the world. Japanese McDonald's fast food as an evidence of corporate globalization and the coming together of different cultures. Culture is defined as patterns of human activities and the symbol that gives these activities significance. Culture is what people eat, how they dress, beliefs they hold, and activities they practice. Globalization has joined different cultures and made them into something different. As Erla Swingle from the National Geographic article titled Globalization states, when cultures receive outside influences, they ignore some and adopt others, and then, almost immediately, start to transform them. One important part of culture is food. Someone in Ghana can be eating amala for lunch, while someone in Nigeria is eating wagasi cheese from Benin Republic. People in North Africa are known for their semolina pasta. Ethiopia and Eritrea are known for injera. America is known for its burgers and fries. McDonald's is an American company, which is now a global enterprise with 31,000 locations worldwide. This company is just one example of food causing cultural influence on the global scale. The internet breaks down cultural boundaries across the world, making it easy for people to communicate with one another anywhere, either in the digital form or media. The internet is associated with the process of cultural globalization because it allows interaction and communication between people with very different lifestyles and from very different cultures. Photo sharing websites allows interaction even where language would otherwise be a barrier. Effects of globalization. Globalization has various aspects which affect the world in several different ways, and they include industrial. This has to do with the emergence of worldwide production markets and broader access to a range of foreign products for consumers and companies, particularly movement of materials and goods between and within national boundaries. International trade in manufactured goods increased more than 100 times, from $95 billion to $12 trillion in the 50 years since 1955. China's trade with Africa rose sevenfold during 2007 alone. 2. Financial. The emergence of worldwide financial markets and better access to external financing for borrowers. By the early part of the 21st century, more than $1.5 trillion in national currencies were traded daily to support the expanded levels of trade and investment. As these worldwide structures grew more quickly than any transnational regulatory regime, the instability of the global financial structure dramatically increased, as evidenced by the financial crisis of 2007 to 2010. As of 2005 to 2007, the port of Shanghai holds the title as the world's busiest port. Thirdly, economic. Realization of a global common market based on the freedom of exchange of goods and capital. The interconnectedness of these markets, however, meant that an economic collapse in any one given country could not be contained. Almost all notable worldwide IT companies are now present in India. 4 Indias were among the world's top 10 richest in 2008, worth a combined $160 billion. In 2007, China had 415,000 millionaires and India 123,000. Health policy. On the global scale, health becomes a commodity. In developing nations under the demands of structural adjustment programs, health systems are fragmented and privatized. Global health policy makers have shifted during the 1990s from United Nations players to financial institutions. The result of this power transition is an increase in privatization in the health sector. This privatization fragments health policy by crowding it with many players with many private interests. These fragmented policy players emphasize partnerships, specific interventions to combat specific problems, as opposed to comprehensive health strategies. Influenced by global trade and global economy, health policy is directed by technological advances and innovative medical trade. Global priorities in these situations are sometimes at odds with national priorities, where increased health infrastructure and basic primary care are of more value to the public than privatized care for the wealthy. Britain is a country of rich diversity. As of 2008, 40% of London's total population was from an ethnic minority group. The latest official figures shows that in 2008, 590,000 people arrived to live in the UK, whilst 427,000 left, meaning that net inward migration was 163,000. Political. Some use globalization to mean the creation of the world government, which regulates the relationship among governments and guarantees the rights arising from social and economic globalization. Politically, the United States has enjoyed a position of power among the world powers, in part because of its strong and wealthy economy. With the influence of globalization and with the help of the United States' own economy, the People's Republic of China has experienced some tremendous growth within the past decade. If China continues to grow at the rate projected by the trends, then it is very likely that in the next 20 years, there will be a major reallocation of power among the world leaders. China will have enough wealth, industry and technology to rival the United States for the position of leading world power. Informational. Increase in information flows between geographical remote locations. Arguably, this is a technological change with the advent of fiber optic communications, satellites, and increased availability of telephone and the internet. Language. The most popular language is Mandarin, spoken by 845 million people, followed by Spanish, 329 million speakers, and English, 328 million speakers. About 35% of the world's mail, telexes, and cables are in English. Approximately 40% of the world's radio programs are in English. About 50% of all internet traffic uses English. Competition. Survival in the new global business market calls for improved productivity and increased competition. Due to the market becoming worldwide, companies in various industries have to upgrade their products and use technology skillfully in order to face increased competition. Ecological. The advent of global environmental challenges that might be solved with international cooperation, such as climate change, cross-boundary water and air pollution, overfishing of the ocean, and the spread of invasive species. Since many factories are built in developing countries with less environmental regulation, globalism and free trade may increase pollution. On the other hand, economic development historically required a dirty industrial stage, and it is argued that developing countries should not, via regulation, be prohibited from increasing their standard of living. The construction of continental hotels is a major consequence of globalization process in affiliation with tourism and travel industry. Darush Grand Hotel, Kish, Iran. The growth of cross-cultural contact, advent of new categories of consciousness and identities, which embodies cultural diffusion, the desire to increase one's standard of living and enjoy foreign products and ideas, adopt new technology and practices, and participate in a world culture. Some bemoan the resulting consumerism and loss of languages. Also see transformation of culture. Spreading of multiculturalism and better individual access to cultural diversity, that is, through the export of Hollywood and to a lesser extent Bollywood movies. Some consider such imported culture a danger, since it may supplant the local culture. causing reduction in diversity or even assimilation. Others consider multiculturalism to promote peace and understanding between peoples. A third position, gaining popularity, is the notion that multiculturalism to a new form of multiculture in which no distinction exists and everyone just shifts between various lifestyles in terms of music, clothing, and other aspects, once more firmly attached to a single culture. Thus, not mere cultural assimilation as mentioned above, but the obliteration of culture as we know it today. Greater international travel and tourism. World Health Organization estimates that up to 500,000 people are on planes at one time or the other. In 2008, there were over 922 million international tourist arrivals, with a growth of 1.9% as compared to 2007. Greater immigration, including illegal immigration. The IOM estimates that there are more than 200 million migrants around the world today. Nearly available data shows that remittance flow to developing countries reached $328 billion in 2008. The spread of local consumer products, like food, to other countries often adapted to their culture. Worldwide fads and pop culture such as Pokemon, Sudoku, Noma, origami, idol series, YouTube, Facebook, and MySpace, accessible to those who have internet or television, leaving out a substantial segment of the Earth's population. Also, worldwide sporting events such as FIFA World Cup and the Olympic Games. Consequently, incorporation of multinational corporations into new media. As the sponsors of the All Black rugby team, Adidas has created a parallel website with a downloadable interactive rugby game for its fans to play and compete. Social development of the system of non-governmental organizations as the main agent of global public policy, including humanitarian aid and developmental efforts. Technical development of a global information system, global telecommunications, infrastructure, and greater transborder data flow, using such technologies as the internet, communication satellites, submarine fiber optic cables, and wireless telephone. Also, the increase in the number of standards applied globally, e.g., copyright laws, patent and World Trade Agreement. Now let us examine the legal and ethical forms. The creation of the International Criminal Court and International Justice Movement. Crime importation and raising awareness of global crime fighting efforts and cooperation. The emergence of global administrative law. Religion. The spread and increased interrelation of various religious groups, ideas and practices, and the ideas of the meaning and values of particular spaces. Advantages of globalization on the peoples and cultures of Nigeria. 1. Rise in the volume of global markets. No matter the product, whether films, news, records, or advertising, there will be an increase since international trade will boom, as there will be no obstacle in entering any market. The proliferation of American symbols is an example of this penetration markets. 2. Increase in competition. There will be more choices, which will lower prices and more profits through increase in the volume of trade. As many players enter the industry, professionalism will be engendered. 3. Cultural diversity. Cultural diversity will be present, as there will be a plethora of cultural products available to the individual. 4. Job creation and poverty eradication. As more activities take place in the media and culture sector, more jobs will be created. 5. Check on bad government. Global media and media globalization will help check tyrannical governments and undemocratic government policies. Foreign media can make criticism of government, and local audience can get access to them. Global media could also be used as public relation tool by government, as they can act as a go-between, a channel of communication between countries and leaders. It constructs world public opinion and followership. And finally, aid development. Instant access to media coverage of local activities could open up the nation to development. Global culture industries will alter the altitude and values of underdevelopment in the people. Implications of globalization on the peoples and culture of Nigeria. 1. Culture and media imperialism. With media flow almost one way from the developed nations to the third world, there will only be the imposition of foreign values. The influence of American media content and advertising only intensifies consumption values instead of production values that are needed for economic growth. Globalization, may agree, is another form of recolonization. 2. Cultural homogeneity. As opposed to the theory of cultural diversity, globalization only breeds a further melting down cultures, where the less powerful ones are submerged into that of the powerful American and European cultures. With the proliferation through mass production of foreign culture, is a gently of local culture. There is the destruction of the local for the global. 3. Loss of jobs. The local industries, which cannot compete with large transnational industries, will be forced to close shops, and so many able-bodied professionals will be laid off from their jobs. Summary. We discussed that globalization is sometimes used to refer to economic globalization. We also said that globalization has had an impact on different cultures around the world. And finally, globalization has impact in all facets of human lives. With this, we have come to the end of SOC 102. Thank you for listening.